Hello everyone, this is CA Gudiya Prajapat and today we are going to start the revision lecture for IPCC November 2020 and the first topic of discussion is income from house property. Now before proceeding further, I request everyone to download this PDF. I have provided the link below, so it might be helpful for you guys. So let us start with the charging section. So what does the charging section of house property says? That the two conditions should be satisfied for charging under income from house property. The first one is assessee should be the owner of the house. Now remember, owner always includes deemed owner. So what was our first condition? The assessee should be the owner and owner includes deemed owner. Now second condition was there should be a house property, and house property either means either it can be a building or a land connected with a building. First one is assessee should be the owner includes deemed owner, and the second one is there should be a house property. House property means either a building or a land connected with a building. Clear? Now coming to types of house property. So house property can basically be classified into two types. One is the self-occupied property and other one is a let-out property. Now let out property is always taxable. This let out property is always taxable. Now coming to the self-occupied property, you have to check whether it is used for the commercial purpose or a residential purpose. I'm repeating again, for self-occupied property you have to cross-check whether it is for a commercial purpose or a residential purpose. If it is used for a commercial purpose, kindly ignore that. However, if the self-occupied property is used for the residential purpose, check how many properties are there. So remember, the two self-occupied residential properties exempt. However, more than two you shall be treating as deemed let out property and it shall be taxable accordingly. So clear? Now see types of house property. Either a let out self-occupied property and a let out property. Let out property is always taxable. Now coming to the self-occupied property, check whether it is a commercial purpose or a residential purpose. If it is for a commercial purpose, kindly ignore that. And if it is for a residential purpose, up to two house property you can claim as an exemption. More than two you have to treat it as a deemed let out property and it shall be taxable accordingly. Clear with these two things? Now next, coming to the computation of income from house property. So how do you calculate the income from house property? So you calculate using, there is a certain format. The first one is gross annual value. You have to find out what is the gross annual value, in short GAV, less municipal taxes, you will get net annual value, less deduction under section 24, which is nothing but standard deduction at 30%, or interest on borrowed capital, and you will get income or loss from the house property. Clear everyone? So gross annual value less municipal taxes, you will get net annual value less deduction under section 24, which is nothing but standard deduction at 30%, and interest on borrowed capital, and you will get profit or loss from house property. Clear? Now self-occupied property, if there is an interest on borrowed capital, remember there will always be a loss from self-occupied property, because the gross annual value will be nil and accordingly the net annual value will also be nil. So hence you will get the balance in negative figures. Now quickly let us go through each of the items and what does it means. So gross annual value, what do you mean by gross annual value? And how do you determine the gross annual value? See, gross annual value is nothing but higher of expected rent and actual rent. What is gross annual value? Higher of expected rent or actual rent. Now actual rent means the rent which you are receiving. So this is clear. Now what do you mean by expected rent? Now expected rent is nothing but higher of municipal value and fair rent but restricted to standard rent. What is expected rent? Higher of municipal value and fair rent, but you are restricting to standard rent. Now what do you mean by municipal value, fair rent, standard rent, etc.? Municipal value is nothing but whatever the rent, it is fixed by municipal authorities. Now fair rent means rent of a similar property in your locality, and standard rent is rent fixed under Rent Control Act. Okay, so let us quickly revise gross annual value. Gross annual value is nothing but higher of expected rent or actual rent, and expected rent is nothing but higher of municipal value and fair rent, but you are restricting to standard rent. Municipal tax is nothing but a property tax, local tax, etc. Now municipal taxes is allowed only on a payment basis. Remember, municipal tax is allowed only on a payment basis and irrespective of the year for which it is paid. For example, 2018 municipal taxes you're paying in November 2019. Now the year of payment is 1920, but it is pertaining to 1819. So the year for which it is pertaining is not relevant. You have to check the year of payment only. If it is paid in 1920, you just allow it. And also note that the municipal taxes should be paid by the owner. If it is paid by the tenant, it is not allowed. It should not be deducted from here. Clear? So municipal taxes allowed only on a payment basis, and it should be paid by the owner. Payment made by the tenant is not allowed. Now what happens is sometimes in questions they give only percentage. So and so percentage is the municipal taxes. Now on what value you have to calculate the percentage? You have to calculate on municipal value. Clear with the municipal taxes? So while calculating municipal taxes, make note of three things. It is allowed on a payment basis. It should be paid by the owner. Payment by tenant is not allowed. And third one is it is calculated as a percentage of municipal value. Clear? So gross annual value is clear, municipal value is clear. Now if you deduct that, you will get the net annual value. Now coming to standard deduction at 30% of NAV. Now what do you mean by standard deduction? So see, like expenses like insurance, repairs and maintenance, etc., they are allowing at a standard rate of 30%, which means that actual all the expenses such as insurance, electricity, repairs, maintenance, etc., is not allowed, because 30% standard deduction is already allowed. I hope everyone are clear. Next, coming to interest on borrowed capital. Now interest on borrowed capital, be careful everyone. So now interest on borrowed capital is allowed if the loan is taken for house property. Now the purpose can be purchase, construction, renovation, repair, etc. The purpose can be anything, and loan can be borrowed from anyone. If you have borrowed from the family, friends, banks or anyone, it is allowed. Now loan, whether it is allowed on a payment basis or a due basis, remember interest is allowed on a due basis. Municipal tax is allowed on payment basis, interest is allowed on a due basis. However, penal interest is not allowed. In case you have paid the interest late to the bank, and on that the bank is charging penal interest, then that is not allowed. Clear? So interest is allowed on due basis, however penal interest is not allowed. Now coming to what happens if you have borrowed a loan from a family or friends who are residing outside India and you're paying interest to them, whether that is allowed? Yes, that is allowed, provided TDS is deducted. Interest paid outside India is not allowed if TDS is not deducted. Clear? Yes. Now next, coming to fresh loan taken for repayment of earlier loan, interest is allowed on the fresh loan. What does it mean? For example, you are already having a loan and you are unable to pay that loan. So for paying that loan, you are taking one more loan. So whether interest paid on the new loan, whether that is allowed? Yes, that is also allowed. Clear everyone? Yes. Now next one is pre-construction interest. Now what do you mean by pre-construction interest? Now see, pre-construction interest is nothing but interest paid till construction. What is pre-construction interest? Interest paid till construction. Clear? Now it is allowed in 5 equal installments. However, remember, calculate interest up to earlier year of completion. For example, the construction was completed in January 20. So the earlier year to this was 1819. So till 31st March 2019, it shall be treated as a pre-construction interest, and it shall be allowed in 5 equal installments from the year 1920. Next one is, what is the maximum interest limit? Now remember that if the loan is taken for the purpose of let out property, there is no limit. There is no upper limit. How much ever actual interest it is there, that is allowed. However, if the loan is taken for a self-occupied property and if it is taken for a repairs, then you will allow only 30,000. Remember, self-occupied property repairs 30,000. Let out property repairs no limit. It is only for self-occupied property, and if the purpose was for repairs, then you will allow 30,000. Or if the loan was borrowed before 1st April 1999, in such a case also you will restrict the interest in case of a self-occupied property to 30,000. Clear? Yes. So when the 30,000 limit is applicable, if it is for the purpose of repairs, of a self-occupied property and the loan was borrowed before 1st April 1999, then you will allow 30,000 only. However, the limit is 2 lakh in case if it is borrowed on or after 1st April 1999 and the purpose is purchase or construction. Clear? Provided if the loan is borrowed for the purpose of construction, construction should be completed within 5 years from the end of the loan borrowed. Clear everyone? Next, coming to unrealized rent. Now what do you mean by unrealized rent? Now there is also a certain concept called as arrears of rent. Unrealized rent, arrears of rent. What is the difference between these two? It is very simple. See, unrealized rent is nothing but a default made by the tenant in payment of rent. It is nothing but a bad debt. So, for classifying the unrealized rent, the four conditions should be satisfied. The tenancy should be bona fide. Reasonable steps should have been taken by the assessee to make the tenant vacate the place. And the defaulting tenant should not occupy any other house property of the assessee. And the assessee should have taken legal steps for its recovery. If these four conditions are satisfied, you can classify this as unrealized rent. Now, next coming to arrears of rent. What do you mean by arrears of rent? Means the tenant wants to pay the rent, maybe, but it is under dispute. Clear? So, unrealized rent is nothing but a bad debt. Arrears of rent, rent under dispute. Now, both these things are allowed. However, how the recovery of unrealized rent and arrears of rent is taxable. Now, remember, the recovery is taxable under the head house property. To the extent it was allowed as a loss earlier in the year in which the recovery was made, irrespective of the fact whether the assessee owns the house or not. For example, let us say you had an let us say X is an assessee and he had an unrealized rent of rupees 30,000 and it was pertaining to assessment year or it was pertaining to previous year 1718. Okay, now coming to 1920, the assessee has sold the house. He is not the owner of the house, and in 1920 he is recovering that 30,000. In such a case, whether that 30,000 is taxable? The question, first question. Second, if it is taxable, taxable under which head? Because the assessee has already sold that property. So remember, irrespective of the fact whether the assessee is having a house or not, the recovery shall be taxable under the head house property only. And to the extent it was allowed as a loss earlier. So assessing officer allowed as a loss earlier, he said the conditions were satisfied, these four conditions, and assessing officer agreed and they allowed 30,000. Now this 30,000 will be taxable. Clear with this? Any amount spent on such recovery is to be ignored. So any amount spent for the recovery of unrealized rent or arrears of rent, it should be ignored. No, it is not allowed as to be reduced from the recovery of unrealized rent or arrears of rent. And whether the standard deduction is allowed? Yes, the standard deduction of 30% is also allowed. So let us quickly go through the examples of recovery of unrealized rent. See now, example number 1, unrealized rent for FY 12-13 was 80,000. Assessing officer allowed a loss of 20,000 in previous year 12-13 and recovery in 1920 was 72,000. What is the taxable amount? Now see, remember how much was the unrealized rent? 80,000. Assessing officer allowed as a loss was 20,000, which means that assessing officer did not allow 60k in 12-13 as a loss. So what happened in 12-13? This 60k was already taxed in 12-13. Correct? See, the assessing officer allowed loss of rupees 20k in 12-13. What was the actual unrealized rent? 80k. So 80 minus 20, 60k. Now what happened to the 60k in 12-13? It was already taxed in 12-13. Now your recovery in 1920 is 72,000. Now this 72,000 also includes that 60,000 and that 60,000 was already taxed in 12-13. Will you tax again in 1920? No. So what you will do is 72,000 recovery less whatever is disallowed in 12-13, which is nothing but 60,000. So 72,000 minus 60,000, which will give me balance 12,000, and In that I will deduct 30% standard deduction, so I'll get rupees 8,400, which should be taxed in year 1920. Clear? Yes? Now, coming to question number 2, unrealized rent for 12-13 was 80,000. Assessing officer disallowed 20,000. Okay, so which means he allowed 60k. And recovery in 1920 was 72,000. Determine taxable amount. Now in this case 80,000 minus disallowed amount 20,000, which will give me 60,000, less 30% standard deduction will give me 42,000. Clear everyone? I hope everyone are clear. Now let us go to the example number 3, which says unrealized rent for 12-13 was 80,000. Assessing officer allowed 20,000 in 12-13, so disallowed amount was 60,000. Okay, now recovery in previous year 1920 is only 15,000. Disallowed is 60,000. Recovery is less than the disallowed amount, so hence the taxability in 1920 is nil. Clear everyone? Now see, it is very simple here. See, listen. 80k, it is an unrealized rent. Now assessing officer allowed a loss of rupees 20,000, right? So disallowed amount is 60,000, which was already taxed in 12-13. Now I am recovering only 15,000, which is less than my 60,000. Already it is taxed. I was taxed much more in 12-13. So hence the taxable in 1920 is nil. Clear everyone? Yes. Concept which is called as partly self-occupied property and partly let out property. Now what do you mean by that? Partly self-occupied or a partly let out property. Now see, remember, there may be a situation that first floor is self-occupied, second floor is let out. Then what you should do? Or there may be a situation that for 3 months the property was let out and for the remaining 9 months the property was self-occupied. Possible? Yes. So how do you treat in such a case, and what are the tax treatments, whether you should treat entirely as a self-occupied property or entirely as a let out property? So let us quickly go through that. Now first one is partly self-occupied and partly let out on basis of area, which means first floor is self-occupied, second floor is let out, or vice versa. It can be anything. In such a case, what will happen? The tax treatment shall be self-occupied will be treated as self-occupied and let out will be treated as a let out property only, which means that first floor will be treated as a self-occupied property, second floor will be treated as a let out property. Both the cases will be treated as a separately and tax shall be calculated accordingly. Clear? Now you may have a doubt that what about the municipal value, fair rent? It will be of the entire building. See, municipal value, standard rent, it will be for entire building and it cannot be for unit wise. So in such a case, the municipal rent, fair rent, standard rent, municipal taxes as well as interest, it should be divided between SOP and LOP on area basis. Now, assume that the property was self-occupied for 3 months and it was let out for 9 months. How do you treat? Let out for few months and balance months self-occupied. Now, tax treatment shall be entire period treated as LOP only. Even if it is let out for 1 day, you should treat as let out property. It should not be treated as a self-occupied property. Okay. Now, coming to for area wise, actual rent should never be divided because it's received against let out property only. It is common sense. Obviously, actual rent I will be receiving for let out property only. See, now there may be a situation that a property is self-occupied for, let's say, 9 months and remaining 3 months it was left as a vacant. In such a case, what you will treat? Whether it shall be treated as a self-occupied property or a let out property. Remember, vacancy is not equal to let out. So if a property is self-occupied for few months and remaining months it was vacant, then it should be treated as self-occupied property for entire period and you should reduce the vacancy loss if any. Clear with that? Yes? Okay. Now next concept is composite rent. Now what do you mean by composite rent? See, composite rent is nothing but a rent received for house as well as for the other benefits. For example, furniture, interior or anything other than that. Okay, so it is known as composite rent. Now how do you tax composite rent? Listen, there is an agreement check whether the agreement is separable or not. If the agreement is separable and you can separately determine the rent for house property alone, then that portion will be taxed under income from house property, and whatever the rent received for other assets like furniture or anything else, it shall be taxed either under income from other sources or PGBP as the case may be. Clear? Now what happens if the agreement is not separable? The entire total rent is taxable either from income from other sources or PGBP. It is not taxable under house property. Clear everyone? See, if it is not feasible to let out property without other assets, total rent is taxable under income from other sources or PGBP only. Hotels, you pay the rent for staying in the property as well as for using benefits such as like AC, fridge, or maybe let's say bed, etc. Right? So you pay for staying there as well as for other benefits also. Now it is possible that you go to a hotel and they just give you a room without any bed or something. No, right? So it is not feasible. In such a case, it is taxable under income from other sources or PGBP only. It is not taxable under income from house property. Clear everyone? So composite rent, check whether the agreement is separable or not. If the agreement is separable, tax under house property rent, whatever it is, and other assets you will tax under income from other sources or PGBP. And if the agreement is not separable, entire thing you are going to tax under income from other sources or PGBP. However, if it is not feasible to let out in case of hotel, irrespective of whether the agreement is separable or not, you will be charging under income from other sources or PGBP only. Clear everyone? Yes. Now, property, next concept is property owned by co-owners. Now see, where a house is jointly owned by co-owners, is a self-occupied property by each of the co-owner, the annual value of property will be nil and each co-owner shall be entitled to a deduction of 30,000 or 2 lakh as the case may be. Right? So for example, there is a property and it is jointly owned by X and Y. In such a case, X and Y, they both will get the benefit of 30,000 or 2 lakh, whatever it is, the interest limit. Clear everyone? Yes. Now, however, if it is a let out property and it is a jointly owned, in such a case you have to compute the tax normally only, and thereafter whatever the remaining, after calculating everything, whatever the income you are getting, that you have to divide amongst each co-owner as per their respective share. Clear everyone? So what is the concept for property owned by co-owners? If it is a self-occupied property, each co-owner shall be treated as a separate and they will get 30,000 or 2 lakh deductions. However, if it is a let out property and it is jointly owned, in such a case calculate normal method only, how we are calculating for a let out property, and then whatever the remaining income or the loss from house property you are getting, that you have to divide in the respective share of each co-owner. Clear? Yes. We are referring to one recent amendment and it is very important also. It is very important concept. Now let us go through what this concept says. The annual value of a house property shall be nil if the following conditions are satisfied. The property is held as stock in trade and it is not let out for whole or part of year. Now, when the property shall be held as a stock in trade, for example, in case of a dealer. Now, what happens in case of a dealer is he may have many property, right? But however, we saw that if the house property is more than 2, it shall be treated as a deemed let out property. Now, this is unfair in case of a dealer because for him it is stock in trade. In such a case, what they are saying is the benefit of nil annual value shall be applicable for a period of 2 years from the end of the financial year in which the certificate of completion of property is obtained from the competent authority. Now see, what does this concept says is, in case X is a dealer and he is having 10 properties. Okay, now out of this 10 property, 7 properties are not sold. X is a dealer, he has 10 properties, 3 properties are sold, ignore that. Now remaining 7 properties are there and all these 7 properties are what? These are stock in trade for X and all these 7 properties are not let out also. In such a case, all these 7 properties shall be treated as self-occupied property, because the basic condition chargeability section 22 condition is satisfied. What does 22 says? Assessee should be the owner. Yes, dealer is the owner because it is not sold yet, those 7 properties. Second condition was there should be a building. Yes, there is a building. Now in such a case, chargeability section 22 applies. So hence it is taxable under house property. Now what happens? We saw that in case of a self-occupied property, if it is more than 2, okay, it shall be treated as a deemed letter property. In our case, he is having a 7 properties. Okay, now in our case, we are having 7 properties and all these 7 are not let out, which means that should be treated as deemed let out and calculate? No, it will be unfair. So for this, what they are saying is the benefit of nil annual value shall be applicable for a period of 2 years from the end of the year for which the certificate of completion of construction of the property was obtained from the competent authority. Clear everyone? Yes. So for the next 2 years from the year of completion, even though he is having more than 2 self-occupied property, the annual value will be nil and you will not consider as a deemed let out property in case of a dealer who is having the property as stocking trade and these properties are not let out. Now this is a good example and you can go through by yourselves. Just go through it. Okay. I hope everyone are clear with the concept for income from house property. In case if you are having any doubts, please comment below. And in case if you want me to take the revision lecture for the other topics also, please comment below so that I can take the revision lectures for those topics also. Thank you.